Hello and welcome to Production Bytes. I'm your host Veranova, and today we will be covering part 2 of our series on sound and synthesis. First off, I'm going to cover the basic theory of synthesis before showing you some examples and applications. So to start off, sound synthesis is the creation of new sounds through shaping, combining and manipulating source sounds. You hear synthesized sounds in almost all music, film and games these days, but it's most prolific in electronic music. Synthesis can be complex at a glance, however, it's easily broken down into some main types. The two most common types are subtractive synthesis and additive synthesis. The simplest type is subtractive. This takes an audio source and shapes it using filters, like those we spoke about with EQ. Subtractive synthesis has three core elements: the oscillator, sometimes known as VCO, or voltage-controlled oscillator, the filter, sometimes known as VCF, or voltage-controlled filter, and the amplifier, sometimes known as VCA, or voltage-controlled amplifier. The oscillator is what creates a sound, normally a simple electronic sound such as a sine wave, square wave, triangle wave, saw wave, or even white or pink noise. And many synths these days have several oscillators which you can configure separately. The filter is used to shape the sound by changing the balance of harmonics. For instance, you can place an LP or low-pass filter on a saw wave to remove the top frequencies and make it sound closer to a string sound. The amplifier controls the level of the sound's output and is normally controlled by a volume envelope. Often in synths you can automate parameters, and modulation is the term used to describe this. The two main modulation controllers are envelopes and Lfos. An envelope controls a parameter's level over time, and often comes in the form of a four-stage ADSR envelope. ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. In a volume envelope, like I mentioned with the amplifier, the attack phase controls how long it takes for a sound to reach its loudest volume when you hit a note. A volume envelope with a long attack will fade in the sound slowly, and a fast attack will make the sound start instantly. The decay phase controls how long it takes for the sound to fade from its peak to the level set in the sustain phase. The sustain phase determines how loud the sound will be kept at until you let go of the held note. Finally, the release phase controls how fast the sound fades away once you release the held note. A long release will slowly fade out the sound to nothing, and a fast release will cut the sound out instantly. The second modulation controller is an LFO, or Low-Frequency Oscillator. This controls a parameter using an oscillator, normally running at a frequency below the range of human hearing. You can often change the waveform and speed of the oscillator manually. When the oscillator's waveform is at its peak, the modulated parameter will be at its highest, and when the waveform is at the bottom of its cycle, the modulated parameter will be at its lowest. The other main types of synthesis generally differ in the way they produce a sound at the oscillators, and therefore the design after the oscillators is quite similar to subtractive. Additive synthesis, for instance, combines waveforms to create the end sound. You can program in every single partial of a sound, which is tedious, but you can get a lot closer to real-world sounds using it. Another popular type of synthesis is called wavetable. This is an evolution of additive synthesis, but it has preset waveforms on each oscillator, which makes programming it a lot less tedious. So now that I've covered the basics of synthesis, I can show you a practical application. This is Native Instruments Massive. It's a popular wavetable synth used by pretty much every producer at the minute. Massive has 3 oscillators, 2 filters, and the amplification section is here. The routing is a bit more complicated than the one I showed you before, however it's got the same principles. You've got 3 oscillators, and these go out to the filters. These here are some inserts you can put in to put effects in, but we'll ignore those for now. Then the signal flow goes from the filter along to the amplification section, and then finally out past some more effects to the master, which is the output. So to start with, I'll take you through the oscillators. Now each oscillator has an on or off switch, a drop-down menu to select the waveform, and these buttons cycle through the waveforms. There's also a drop-down menu to determine how the sound is played. Then you've got your pitch in semitones and your pitch in cents. This is the wavetable position, and it controls certain parameters inside the waveforms. So in this case, this waveform is a sine square. When it's all over to the right, it's a full square wave, but as you fade it off to the left, it becomes a sine wave. So it fades between the two waveforms. However, there's some special waveforms, like modern talking, which create a talking sound when you move this. The intensity for most waveforms is like a low pass. It just trims off the high frequencies. And the amp determines the level of the oscillator. Finally, this control here determines which filter the oscillator is being sent to. All the way up sends it to filter 1, and all the way down sends it to filter 2. And putting it straight in the middle will send it to both filters at once. So next is the filter section, which is this here. Now the filter section has two filters, and it allows you to route these in parallel, which means the signal is split between them and joined up at the end, or it allows you to route them in series, which you get if you drag this fader up, which means all of the signal is sent to the first filter, and then it's routed straight to the second filter, and then out of the filter section. It's also worth noting that you have an output mix control here. Now this allows you to decide which filter you're hearing. So when you're set to parallel, and both your filters are turned up, you can then fade between the two. However, when you're set to series, you need to make sure this is down to mix 2, because otherwise you won't hear anything coming out, since all the signal is coming out of filter 2. Now to select a filter type, you just click on the drop-down menu here, and then you get all of your filters come up. So let's say we want a low pass. Now we'll set our filters to parallel at the minute, and set the mix up to filter 1, just to simplify the signal chain. And you can hear that's working straight away. The most important part of Massive's interface is the modulation. In Massive, you get 4 envelopes and 4 LFOs. Now the envelope section is just like I spoke about before. It's an ADSR envelope, although there are a couple of other bits on it which I haven't spoken about, but I'll leave them out for now because they're a bit more advanced. So you've got your attack and a level for your peak. Then you have your decay time and a level for your sustain. And lastly, you have your release time. On the LFOs, you have 2 oscillator shapes that you can fade between. Modulation in Massive works using a drag and drop system. To assign a modulation controller to a parameter, all you've got to do is click here and drop it onto the parameter's modulation box. Then you can set the range, which is the region of the parameter that the controller is going to swing between. And if I turn on this low pass now and play the sound with my tack up a bit, you can hear the filter is following this curve. However, if I want the low pass to swing between frequencies constantly, I'll need an LFO. Now if I set this to a sine wave and assign it to this parameter, you can now see it will swing between these points. Now I could go on talking about massive all day, but what I'll do last is I'll just talk quickly about the effects. So you've got two inserts down here, which you can put anywhere in the chain, in any of these points. So let's say I want to distort the signal a bit after the filter cut off. So what I'll do is down here on insert 1, I've just put it up here after the filter. I'll select hard clipper and just turn the drive up a bit. And you can hear that's distorting it now. Lastly, you've got two effects up here, which are at the end of the chain, and these have some different effects in them. So let's say I just want to put a little bit of reverb on this sound. Done. So the next episode up is going to be from my co-host Digest, who will be making sounds in Massive. And while I've showed you the basics, he's going to go over some more of the complicated parts of Massive over time and give you a deeper understanding of it. You can get a free demo of Massive from the Native Instruments website and have a play with this yourself. But that's all from me. I'm going to leave some links to some more learning resources in the bar below. If you'd like to see a specific tutorial in the future, then please head over to the Production Bytes Facebook page and leave a comment suggesting it. And please like, comment and subscribe.